Doing inner child work is absolutely crucial for your spiritual growth. And here is why. We are born into this 3D world, and the government and society have only taught us how to live in this 3D reality. There is no guidebook on how to nurture your spirit or your being or your soul. It's really just telling us that we grow up from being a baby to a toddler to a child, a teenager, adult, and then we perish, we disappear, we die, and everybody gets sad, and that's the end of the story. That is literally what we are told here on planet Earth. You've got to go and search for the 5D experience, which is just as real as the 3D, right? And the 5D, so we're talking about dimensions, is more of a spirit realm. And as a medium, this is a realm that I play in. I play in all of the different dimensions, multi-dimensional beings, we all are, but the 5D is one that I access just as much as the 3D. The 3D is all about the linear. It is all about the time, right? It's all about, so when I was this old and now we're in this year, it is this time. But the 5D is the spirit realm. So that means in the spirit realm, time is not linear. And if time is not linear, that means that our inner child is still living and existing with us. No matter what time frame we were in, it is still within us now. So this is why inner child work is so important, because we do timeline therapy, timeline jumping, timeline healing. We must be able to go back to different points in our childhood that really affected us, that we remember, that pops up, that maybe there was some trauma there, maybe there was some greatness there, maybe there was a whole lot of pleasure there. We can go back into those spaces when we are acknowledging that we are spirit, and we can heal those parts of us from back in that 3D timeline, but acknowledging that it is still here in the now. Why is it here in the now? Because if you all of a sudden get a feeling like nearly a trauma response, or maybe it's an exciting feeling or a deja vu, if you have that type of reaction to something, then that part of you from your childhood, from your past, is actually living within you now, which is a part of you that is coming up to be seen, heard, or witnessed, and potentially reparented. There's been so many times in our life, and this life is short, but it's pretty long because we have so many experiences, and there's all these timelines that are coming up and coming in the form of patterns. We have got many patterns and cycles and rhythms to this beautiful human, and quite often we tend to hide. So we go into flight, fight, freeze, or faint. We go into one of those things when something comes up and we don't quite know how to deal with that reaction or that feeling or whatever it is. And the reason being is because we weren't able to cope with it when we were younger. It comes back up, so then we can actually address it now that we've got a more mature way of seeing the world, a broader perspective, if you will, and we were able to go back to that inner child ourselves and do whatever it takes. So one of my favorite things to do with my clients is to take my clients' now self, their spirit, their consciousness now, back into the timeline, the situation, the event, whatever it is, the situation, to do some work. And I quite often do this in breath work as well. So we go on this journey together. It's so beautiful, where you go back and you are able to heal different parts of you that at the time you didn't know what was going on, right? You weren't able to cope with it or handle it because maybe it was something bad that happened that you had no control over at the time. Or maybe it was your first breakup from your first boyfriend, or maybe you were in some type of accident. So usually it's the trauma that pops up so we can go back and heal it. On the other side of that, we've got the light side of the shadow, where feelings that come up like, oh my gosh, when you go to the beach and you're like, and all of a sudden you want to make sandcastles and you feel delighted, or you're going for a bushwalk and you're getting the deja vu feelings, like your inner child is always living through you, and they exist within you in this 5D, in this multi-dimensional reality. You are able to live as all ages, including your future self. I also take people on journeys to receive information from their future self. Now, sometimes people keep it very linear, like you've got spirit guides, you've got your higher self. And although that is very true, we tend to not respect the fact or acknowledge it so much that our inner child is just as powerful as any guides, just as powerful as any ancestors, just as powerful as any spirit, as a timeline jumper, as a quantum queen or king. We can do the deepest healing within us if we are willing to dive into those parts of us that we locked away, where we went into fight, flight, freeze, or faint. We are able to unlock those parts and step into that discomfort to parent ourselves from our now self to our then self. And what actually happens is that the trauma can literally dissipate. It's just like when a child falls over, they hurt themselves, and it's more of the shock that kind of hurt them. They're crying, they can't breathe, and they've got a little graze on their knee, right? Imagine what would happen to that child if they're there by themselves and they don't have anybody to comfort them. Or if a parent or a caregiver or an adult alike came along, put them on their knee, gave them a hug and said, just breathe. Everything is going to be okay. Let's put a plaster on your knee. And this is what we are able to do for ourselves. We are able to reparent in those parts where it was missed, where we needed more love or more understanding, or if a trauma happened and we really required some support in that area, or some extra love, or someone to talk to. Maybe we shut down and we weren't able to talk to the people around us. And this is not a blaming or a shaming type of exercise. It's an acknowledgement that you are a multi-dimensional being here in this space, as a human, as a being, as a soul. You are your greatest healer. And this is what the inner child work does for you. When I do my inner child work, I see myself like I would see my daughter. How I treat my daughter or my son, I always think, how would I want to be treated? How do I want to be treated? So as I grow with my children, I grow with myself. And each year when my children grow up or when they go through a different stage, and I've heard other people say this as well, I feel like I'm going through the timeline of that age again. And it's popping through because it's like a parallel universe. And I'm able to go through and grow with my kids and heal parts of me by, when I'm parenting them, I'm also parenting myself. I hope you have enjoyed this little video on inner child. I'd love to hear how this resonates with you, what you're already doing with your inner child, and also what do you want to take going forward, knowing that you are the strongest being in your own reality, from your 6-year-old to your 60-year-old. See you soon.